Alrighty, we're going to talk about how to mix up your clay, which is just a paper mache pulp. So I gave it to you in the powdered form in a container. You got different amounts depending on if you had more than one person. It doesn't take very much, it goes really far. In this container, it was full up to underneath the rim here. And the ratio of paper pulp to water is 1 part water to 5 parts clay. So I have some warm water here, and I'm going to go ahead and fill up 1/5, so up to my first line, because I've got 5 parts of this, 1 part of this. And I'm going to start by putting not all of the water in, but most of the water in, because it's easier to add more water. It's much harder to take it out. Now, I did not give you guys something to mix with. You can use like an old popsicle stick. These are just, I have an old spoon that's no longer like in my good silverware set. So I'm still pretty powdery, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little more of the water in. I'm leaving a little bit left in there just so I can kind of work it up slowly, because what's going to happen is it's going to take a few minutes to mix up. The clay is paper pulp, and it's got paper mache paste in there. So it's non-toxic, but it is a little bit dusty, and so obviously dust isn't meant to go into your lungs. So the only, you definitely don't want to be like inhaling the dust. So if you're finding you're getting a lot of dust, you could wear your mask, which you should have handy because we need them to go out anywhere public, just to kind of keep that out of your lungs. But you'll notice that it went from very light and gray, and I'm already starting to get a nice clay-like consistency. So that's why it's called clay, because it kind of works and functions just like clay. Still a little bit on the dry side, so I am going to go ahead and put in the last little bit of water. You may need to add a smidgen more. But again, kind of just mark the container with how high it is. You know, in this case, I was up to here, and then divide it into 5 equal parts. Container goes out. It's not going to be a perfect measurement, but it's going to get you pretty close. There's also a little hump in the bottom, so I'm probably a little low on the water. But again, like I said, you can always add more water. You could let it dry out a little bit if you accidentally add too much water. But I definitely think you want to mix it with something. It could be like a wooden paint stick. You have like a tongue depressor type popsicle stick laying around the house. I'm trying to think. It just has to be something kind of sturdy, because it is very thick and clay-like. So I'm just about where I want to be. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to the side, and I'm going to go ahead and start mixing with my hand. So I've still got some light gray parts, but I'm just going to kind of knead it together so that that moisture is absorbed. And so as long as you've mixed it mostly, it should not coat your hands super goopy slimy. If it's super goopy slimy on your hands, I would suggest letting it sit and letting some of that water kind of evaporate. So it should look like a lump of clay, which I'm guessing most of you have used at school. Unfortunately, a week is not really a long enough time to do a clay project from start to finish with firing and glazing. So we haven't done an Artapalooza for a really long time, but there you go. And then once you have this, you're ready to sculpt. So you want to use one of your blank papers, one of the lighter papers, the thinner ones, to roll on before you start shaping it. So like sometimes you're going to be rolling it into like a ball of clay. Say you're making a nose, and then you can kind of make it a little bit more triangle-like. And you can use your tool, which I don't have handy, I'm going to use the back of my fingernail. So that would be like a really good dog nose. And then it just presses onto the clay. As you'll see in the other video, you do want to kind of smush it a little bit. But if you're having a hard time getting this clay to stick, all you're going to do is have a little bit of water nearby and dab the water on there or on the paper mache mask and then kind of stick it on. This dries super hard like a rock, like cement, but it's definitely a little bit heavy. So if you're adding a lot of it, you may need to wad up some newspaper or create some kind of base underneath it so that your mask doesn't flatten out. Because we did all that work to shape it to our face that we don't want to go ahead and undo all of that by adding our details with this. So in the next video, you'll see how we're going to really apply this to the mask, but that gives you a good idea on how to mix it up. It will stay fresh for about a day. I think that's about all you're going to get out of it. So if you don't finish and you want to save it for the next day, go ahead and cap the lid. If you have a lot of air in your container, which you will have because it does definitely compress down, what you could do is take a small piece of foil and press the foil down tight to it to kind of seal out the air so it doesn't dry out on the outside shell of it, and then go ahead and cap it up. That's like kind of how I wrap up guacamole if I make that, since that smears. If it's super gross on your hands, sometimes I recommend just using soap and a paper towel before you wash, and get like the big chunks off of it before you go to the sink. And that's how you mix up the celluclay. So today your job is going to be to add the celluclay to your mask, add those nice three-dimensional details, and then we're going to start a drawing project that we previewed yesterday on our Zoom call. Remember, call, text, email with any questions. If you're local and say you mess it up mixing and you need to stop by, we can help you mix up a batch or give you some more powder. Don't stress. Just let us know how we can help and support you. Have fun with it.